Hey everyone, in today's day and age, we know what to do for health and wellness, but a lot of times we have trouble implementing those habits, those strategies, etc. We know we should eat right, we know we should exercise, we know we should, get proper sleep, stress management, but sometimes it's hard to do without accountability. So Hally Brooke is a certified health coach. She actually runs Live Nourish, her company, which employs health coaches to doctors' offices and just people needing help on their own to actually implement the strategies that doctors want to implement and create actual habit change in their population. I think this is so important because a lot of times you see a doctor, they give you the plan, they look at your labs, they tell you what to do, and then you're off on your own, so to speak, for months and you don't really know what to do sometimes you have questions that you can't really go to the doctor's office to see. So that's kind of where a health coach kind of bridges that gap where they actually can come in, guide you on the plan, give you accountability. So I'm super excited to share this episode with you all. Hally Brooke is a wealth of knowledge. She's actually had her own health struggles that she's dealt with personally, and she can actually share that with you and as well as guide you on the journey. So if you are looking for a health coach or looking for a doctor who implements a health coach, this might be the right way for you. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and thank you for tuning in.
Welcome to the Fredrickson Health Show, highlighting expert practitioners from health, fitness, injury prevention, functional medicine, and integrative medicine. If you are into upgrading and optimizing your health, this podcast is for you. This podcast is for educational purposes only and not intended to be used as personalized medical advice. And now, here is your host, Dr. Robert Fredrickson.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Today we have Hally on the show. Hally, thank you so much for coming on today.
Dr. Fredrickson, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
So Hally, you have a really interesting journey in functional integrative medicine, but also in personal training. How did you get involved and how has your career progressed throughout this time?
Yeah. So I came out of school. I came out of college thinking I wanted to go to med school, ended up doing a 2-year stint in Teach for America, which turned into 9 years of teaching math, kind of in the inner city. And that landed me super stressed and super sick. So I left teaching. I had to do something else. So I, got a certificate in personal training, started my own business doing that. And through that process, was still super sick, had some pretty gnarly gut issues and just was not okay. And so I started kind of stumbling into functional medicine, looking for answers for myself. And I'm a nerd, so I tell all my clients what I'm learning while we're doing squats. And it was my clients who go, "Oh my gosh, Hally, you have to go back to school for functional medicine." And so I did. So I went back to school for functional medicine nutrition, got a degree in functional medicine nutrition, and then nationally board certified health coach, kind of pivoted my practice to point in that direction. And now we have this amazing, thriving nationwide nutrition and health coaching practice that we have sort of dual fronts on. We support direct to client. So people who are struggling with gut health and brain fog and chronic fatigue, we work with them directly. But what we really love doing is we really love working with practitioners. We work directly with practitioners to help coach their clients and the lifestyle pieces that they're prescribing and that those clients need in order to heal and change.
I love it. So one thing I want to kind of just go a little bit more into detail is exercise and nutrition. Sometimes we get so focused on one that we kind of not really neglect, but we kind of just don't put as much attention on one. And I know you kind of have a really good balance between exercise and nutrition. So when you were just personal training, what kind of issues did you see that maybe people weren't responding to either weight loss or recovery that were really nutrition? And how did you kind of bridge that gap with them?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, I had so many clients when I was personal training who were struggling to lose weight. And so I would ask them, what are they eating? And they're like, "Well, I'm eating burgers and fries and I eat out a lot and I drink beer every weekend." I'm like, "Well, I can't have you out squat your fork. We're just
I love that. Yeah.
unless we fix that, we're not going to hit our goals." And so, we would talk about real food. We would talk about the difference between fake sugar and real sugar. Fake sugar is actually significantly worse than real sugar. I would way rather you drink a real Coke in the glass bottle with actual cane sugar than the, Diet Coke chemical laden. You might as well drink windshield wiper fluid. Yeah. So we'd have a lot of those conversations. And then, as I started learning more about functional medicine and learning about how your thyroid affects stuff, and if you're dealing with Hashimoto's and your immune system has a little ice pick going after your thyroid, it's going to be really hard to lose weight. So we actually have to focus, 90% on nutrition and maybe 10% on movement in
Mm,
order to get any kind of results. The typical standard is it's 80-20, it's 80-20, 80% food, 20% nutrition. I think it's probably 90% food, 10% movement. Movement is so important. It is so key. But people dealing with adrenal fatigue absolutely should not do HIIT workouts. If they're doing HIIT workouts, they're doing the absolute opposite of what their body needs. So that's a long answer, but it's a complex process. You know that.
sure. Yeah. But I think exercise is so important, as you know. And I think sometimes we get so dialed into the nutrition, sometimes we can lose focus. But I love how you had some really good analogies just then. You can't out squat your fork. Then the
Mhm.
ice pick analogy with, Hashimoto's and the thyroid. If you're not willing to change some of the diet parameters, it's going to, continue the progression of disease. So
Yeah.
yes. So with functional medicine, what does functional medicine mean to you, and how would you describe it to somebody who doesn't understand that terminology?
Yeah. So what I say about functional medicine is, so I say two things. First of all, functional medicine is root cause medicine. So instead of playing whack-a-mole with symptoms, we're going to go after the one or two root causes that are causing all of those symptoms. And then those symptoms tend to go away. The other way that I like to say it, I love allopathic medicine. I think Western medicine is amazing. And I always preface with that. We need it. And it's from Western medicine that functional medicine has come, which is amazing. And a lot of times, Western medicine is like walking into a kitchen that's on fire and turning off the fire alarm and then walking out.
Hmm.
And the kitchen is still on fire. So
Yeah.
functional medicine is coming in and going, okay, I don't just need to stop the beeping. I need to actually put the fire out that is causing the beeping.
I like that analogy. You have all the good analogies, Hallie. Um,
Thank you.
and what we said was really important because you talk about there is such an importance, for the traditional, medical route. We can't, I think sometimes in this industry and more the holistic routes, we tend to think that you have to go one way or the other, but really it's if you need to go to these things to screen out for, the emergency, acute, crisis type injuries or illness. But then functional
Yeah.
medicine really helps kind of like, hey, like what's causing this? We can actually sit down with you and actually have an in-depth conversation, find out the ins and outs of, what your lifestyle's like, what you're sleeping like, what your exercise nutrition is like, and really, kind of build a game plan along with lab testing to kind of figure out that model. But yeah, sometimes we think
Yeah.
that one is better than the other and this and that. But I think there's really a cool way we can integrate the two of those which is why you're doing the health coaching to kind of do that. So that's
Yep.
amazing.
Exactly.
So tell me about you. I mean, a lot of times in functional medicine, people have kind of a personal issue or history that kind of, led in functional medicine. I know I did that. Did you have a story like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I ended up just from, stress, and I always grew up eating well. I grew up in a family in Boulder, Colorado. Everything was always organic. My family ate so well. And
That's
yet
awesome.
yeah. So like I had all the background, but I still ended up with some major GI distress, which I think for me was actually harder because it didn't make sense. I was like, I eat well, I eat clean, I eat organic, I eat good whole foods. I've been taught this my whole life. And so when I ended up with IBS, which, came from mostly incredible chronic stress that led, and, antibiotic use that led to gut permeability and all these things, I was hard and I was kind of confused. I was like, why am I struggling with this? I eat really clean. But my story is I ended up with IBS, got told by multiple doctors that, chicken and lettuce was what I was just going to eat for the rest of my life. And good luck with that. And like, here's a probiotic and I hope it works out.
Was that based on a food allergy test or was that just the recommendation?
That was just our recommendation.
Okay.
I had weird symptoms. So with my gut stuff, if I ate gluten, my arms would go numb, but I wasn't
Mm,
celiac. Yeah, super weird. I had super dark circles under my eyes that had absolutely no relation to how much I slept. I was exhausted. I couldn't think straight. My moods were all over the place. I'd never really dealt with anxiety and depression before. And all of a sudden I'm like super anxious and struggling with depression. And there were some life pieces that were, involved in that as well, because it's not all physical. There's like mental health and
oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
situational stuff. But I was dealing with all the things. And so no doctor could figure it out. I ended up getting tested for meningitis because my symptoms were so weird and no one could figure it out. So
Wow.
I saw 3 different GI doctors. The result was like, yeah, you've got IBS. So like, it's not coming up with IBD or colon or colitis or anything like this. So, just eat bland food and that's the rest of your life. And I was like, that cannot be the answer. And this was about 15 years ago. Functional medicine was less popular then than it is now. And so I just
Sure.
kind of started doing some digging into my symptoms and what was going on, Dr. Google, which can be really dangerous. But
It
thankfully
can
they
be,
had,
yeah.
yeah,
Or sometimes
thank
helpful if you know what to look for, but
exactly. And thankfully I did. I have a librarian as a mom who taught me how to look for good research. And I
nice.
was able to kind of put together, okay, I probably have leaky gut. And then I learned about SIBO and it's like, that checks all the boxes.
Mm.
But none of my doctors at that point would test me. I asked 3 doctors to test me for SIBO and they're like, you don't have SIBO. Okay, well, cool. So I sort of like put this program together for myself. And over the course of about 3 months with nutrition and prayer and like reducing my stress and getting out of a really toxic, dangerous situation, I'm totally healed. I can now eat gluten and dairy and it doesn't affect me. And that's really what pushed me into, I have to learn about this and I have to tell other people because there are other people who are as sick as I was and are struggling like I was. So,
Yes, thank you for sharing that. We have actually some um, similar stories, similar experience. I was actually in the same boat. I was going to doctor. This was, maybe 10 years ago. I don't know, 8 to 10 years. No doctor, every doctor's like, no, you're super healthy. You're young. You're not overweight. All my lab markers were quote unquote normal. And I was like,
mm,
guys, I don't feel normal. I can't, make a fist. I have, severe hand pain, and all this stuff was going on. So anyway, I started doing my own lab work and started doing my own research. And I started, asking doctors about low dose naltrexone. They had no idea what that was. And I was like, can I take magnesium? Like, no, 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 no. Your magnesium levels are good. So anyways, I finally, did my own lab test, found out I had a little elevation rheumatoid arthritis. It runs in my family. And typically I'm
mm,
not males typically don't carry RA as much as the females do. So anyways, I went to a functional medicine doctor, can make a fist after a week, just getting on the
yeah,
right protocol. And I was like, there's a better way sometimes.
yeah,
There's a better way for a lot of people. And you mentioned a few things I want to kind of talk about for gluten. So you had like severe gluten sensitivity. Does that run in your family, or are you just under so much stress? You just maybe had a weaker barrier in your gut. What is leaky gut to you? We hear that term a lot.
yeah,
We know it's intestinal permeability now, but kind of explain that to the listeners who don't understand that, if you could.
yeah, absolutely. So mine was not celiac. Mine just came from intestinal permeability or leaky gut, which is kind of the more colloquial term.
Mm,
And all of this you probably know, but where that comes from is our gut lining, which when I talk about gut, I'm usually talking about our large intestine. That epithelial lining of your gut is 1 cell thick, which is bonkers. The skin under your eyes is like 30 cells thick. So when we think about, we are putting food and water and drinks through this pipeline that is thinner than tissue paper every single day. It's just not real hard to get holes in that.
mm,
And then once you get holes in that, then you have food particles and poop particles and bacteria particles leaking out into your body, which your immune system then triggers that as a foreign invader or a virus or a bacteria. So your immune system then goes and attacks that thing like it's a foreign invader. And so think about how you feel when you have the flu, when you have an actual foreign invader, you feel exhausted, tired, brain foggy, your stomach is upset, nothing works. You feel body achy, joints hurt, all of those things. Well, now you're having that exact same response every single time you eat because stuff is leaking out. And so for me, I ate gluten in my life, not a ton, but I wasn't gluten free. Like I ate pasta and bread and whatever.
sure.
And so
Yeah.
my immune system latched on to that gluten molecule as a foreign invader. And so I just had the flu all the time, 24/7, because that's what I was eating.
It just felt like the
Um,
flu. Wow.
yeah. So yeah.
Yes. But now that you've done all the healing, all the things to help kind of manage your stress load. So now you can actually eat gluten,
Mhm.
and how does that work? What does your current diet look like? I know everyone's changes from day to day, but do you have some consistency in your patterns?
Yeah, absolutely. So I eat the way I tell my clients to eat, which is real food, mostly plants, not too much, right? The Michael Pollan quote. Um, So that's what I eat. I eat things that either came from the ground or have a mother. I eat more fruits and vegetables than I do meat, but I do really believe that good, high quality, grass-fed, grass-finished meat. My husband is a hunter, so I get to eat
Nice.
elk and moose and deer and like the absolute
Oh,
most
that's awesome.
grass-fed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I eat. We eat, I don't know. I would say we eat pretty standard, but we absolutely don't eat standard. We eat things from the ground and things that have a mother, and we eat real food as often as possible. When we eat cheese, we eat like good, hard, aged cheese that has all of the good probiotics in it. We don't eat stuff that is like soft cheese. We'll eat goat cheese, that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's what we eat. Real food that either comes from the ground or had a mother.
I love it. And I love how you say, well, we eat kind of the standard. Well, actually, it should be the standard, but it's not the standard. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, because our standard American diet is kind of the sad diet for a reason, and it's just full of
Yes.
processed, ultra processed foods, convenience foods, fast foods, ultra fried, you know, golly, we could go
Mm-hmm.
on and on about that. But yeah, this should be kind of more of the models, mostly unprocessed, foods that come from a living source. So
Yeah.
yeah, so true. So I
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit about health coaching, how you started that, how you're making impacts in doctors' offices, because I think that's such a critical piece. Because now what I'm seeing, and maybe you can attest to this, is in functional medicine, in conventional medicine, is like we do the testing, we see the patient, and then we follow up maybe in 6 months, but we sometimes don't have
Mhm.
time, especially in the busier offices, to see how's that patient doing in between visits. And that's kind of where the health coach comes in to kind of guide them, hold their hands, really change habits and routines that actually get them on the path to wellness that they can sustain for a lifetime. So
Yeah.
did I explain it okay?
Yeah. You explained it great. You nailed
Okay.
it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so just kind of tell us how that has worked, how any challenges you've seen along the way, and just how can health coaching benefit a practice?
Yeah, totally. So the magic of health coaching is that kind of transformational lifestyle piece. And so what we've seen in both Western medicine doctors' offices and in functional medicine, but especially in functional medicine, is the doctor is the expert in the plan, right? Like the doctor puts the plan together. These are the supplements, these are the tests, this is the nutrition plan that we need to follow. And then that client goes home and there's a big gap between hey, I need you to follow the elimination food plan for 30 days. And then this client who has a cabinet full of Oreos and spaghetti and 3 kids at home who only eat chicken nuggets, right?
Mm,
Like there's a big gap in that. Or in Western medicine, the client who the doctor says, I need you to start exercising because your A1C is through the roof and your cholesterol is through the roof. And so I need you to eat this way. And then that client goes home and they might actually have that desire to change, but they have no idea how to do it. And even if they do have an idea how to do it, it can be hard, right? Like you have developed a pattern of eating, developed a pattern of living for typically by the time someone's in a functional medicine doctor's office, they're somewhere between 30 and 50, 30 years of life. And now you're
hmm
having to undo 30 to 50 years of life in 6 weeks in order to start feeling better. And so what happens is either those patients go home and they have no idea how to do it. And so they don't get results and then they blame the doctor. Or they go home and they have no idea how to do it. Or the doctor has to put on the health coach hat. And as the doctor, as like the highest paid person in their office, the highest amount of knowledge, they now have to take that person's hand and walk them through how to read the ingredients on the back of a pasta sauce bottle to make sure that it doesn't have added sugar in it. And so where we come in as health coaches is we come in both to take work off the doctor's plate and to dramatically increase patient results,
hmm
because we're the implementation of the brilliant plan that the doctor put together. So like one of my absolute favorite stories, this is top of mind because we're working with this client right now. So we have a functional medicine practitioner. She's a nurse practitioner who works in Billings, Montana. We have a patient who is working with her who came in for Parkinson's disease. And he has, candida is through the roof. So his body is producing alcohol, which is contributing to those Parkinson's. I mean, he's sick.
hmm
But he's a rancher, right? So he eats potatoes and meat. He lives in Billings, Montana, which is a massive food desert. They literally don't have organic produce in their grocery store. Like you actually cannot buy it in Billings, Montana.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. And so this nurse practitioner who we're working with put together this brilliant plan that is going to, for the most part, like eliminate and stop this man's progression of Parkinson's. But the thing is, he has to implement that. Like he has to actually go home and he has to stop eating sugar. He has to go home and he has to figure out how to cook a vegetable, which this man has literally never cooked a vegetable in his life, which when he told us that, I was like, asparagus, carrots, nothing. He's like, no, I eat meat and potatoes. Like, that's it. He's like, yeah, sometimes I eat corn. I was like, oh man, that is not a vegetable, but okay, cool. And so that's where we come in, is we come in and we say, okay, like let's figure out where your sugar is. First of all, he's reading the ingredients on his bread for the first time and going, oh my gosh, there's sugar in bread. I didn't know there's sugar in bread. I was like, there shouldn't be sugar in bread. That's what that process looks like. And the amazing wins is he now is like moving in the direction of being symptom free, and he's back to being able to ride his horse, which he couldn't before because he had these Parkinson's symptoms. And so that's the magic of that tag team of doctor and health coach to really make changes.
Gosh, there's so much to unpack there.
There really is.
But because what you said was, I mean, it's so true. We, how does somebody go through 60 years of life without ever looking at a label or supplements facts box? It happens. It happens probably more than we realize. And
Mm-hmm.
I think as a whole, we kind of know what to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know we should exercise. We know we should eat better, whatever that means to different people. We know that we shouldn't be sitting behind the screen all day long, and we shouldn't be watching TV before bed, and we shouldn't, be smoking or drinking all the time. But it's like, how do we implement that? We don't have the habits or the routines or, the willpower to do that. And so if a doctor, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think doctors sometimes can get a bad rap because they tell these patients what to do and what they want them to do, but the patients basically that they're accountable to themselves. So if they don't do
Yeah.
the things that the doctor told them to do, and they don't know how because they only see the doctor every 6 months to a year, how does that make it change? And I think doctors want their
Yeah.
patients to do better. They want them to do better. They prescribe medications to, help XYZ conditions. Sometimes there's side effects, but as a
Yes.
whole, I think doctors, they got to the profession to help people, but the
Yes.
patients can't help themselves. And so I think health coaching, it helps, helps habits, helps routines. And let's talk about that because I think I'm a big believer in habits. I love the book Atomic Habits by
Yes.
James Clear, and just developing some healthy routines. What are some healthy routines and habits that you like to implement in maybe your own life, but also your client's life? And how did
Yeah.
you how did you start that? And what was maybe some tips to get better habits and stick to it easier?
Totally. Oh man, that is such a loaded question. I feel like that's three questions in one.
It is. Sorry.
It's okay. It's great. So I'll talk about myself first, and then I'll talk about my clients, and then I'll talk about how we do that. So,
Perfect.
um, myself, things that work for me and that really matter. I get up in the morning. As soon as I wake up, I struggle to get out of bed. I am not like a pop out of bed person, but I also refuse to hit snooze because that's one of those habits in my life that I knew was just like shredding my productivity and my happiness in the morning. So in the morning, this is my personal routine. I wake up. I have an app called Glorify. It reads me scripture. I love that. So I put that on. I sit up in bed. I snuggle my dog and I just listen to that. And it's like 10 to 15 minutes where I just kind of get to sit in bed. I get to have that like warm, I'm awake and I'm snuggled in bed feeling, but I'm starting to move in the right direction. And then I get up, and thank goodness we live in Colorado where we have 360 days of sunshine, or 300 days of sunshine. And so most days I get to get up and I get to go outside and I get to sit on my back porch for 10 minutes. If it's the winter, I'll like put on a coat and brush my teeth. If it's the summer, I'll like take my top off. And so I get my stomach and my legs in the sun, and I drink water with electrolytes in the sun. And I do my kind of morning meditation and reading. And then I go back inside and I make myself breakfast and I read something for breakfast. Usually I read my fiction at night and I read my like personal growth stuff during the morning. And then I'm ready to rock and roll. And that is a morning habit that has changed my life. Just getting sunshine on my face is really helpful. When it comes to exercise for me, I am not a super structured person. And so I am committed to moving my body every single day, but it looks different. Sometimes I'll go for a run in the morning. Sometimes I'll go to the gym after work at night. But that piece for routine for me is really commitment. Like I have said, I
Commitment.
will
Yeah.
move my body. Yep. I will move my body 5 days a week. It's not always going to be in the same time. It's not always going to be the same way, but I'm going to do it. So that's myself. For clients, we talk through 4 categories of nourishment. So we say every day we need to have nourished nutrition, nourished movement, a nourished mind and spirit, and nourished relationships. And so what we
Perfect.
talk
I love
about
it.
is we start with what we call baselines. Baselines are like the lowest barrier to entry. And these baselines often progress through the time that a client works with us. So when a client usually comes to us, most of our clients are eating the standard American diet. Most of our clients are fairly sedentary. Most of our clients, haven't really even thought about what a nourished mind or spirit looks like. And most clients are just kind of on default in their relationships. Like whoever is around them is who's around them. We haven't really thought about it. So our baselines what does nourished nutrition look like? And for a new client, a lot of times that's something as simple as, I just want you to have a balanced breakfast. Like if you can get protein in your breakfast, that is our baseline nutrition. And then by the end of the time they're working with us, a baseline nutrition might look like, I'm eating whole real foods cooked at home 5 nights a week. But those baseline shift, but we still have baseline nourished nutrition. And then we do the same thing with nourished movement. So what does nourished movement look like? A client who's just starting with us might look like a 30-minute walk, twice a week. A client who's ending with us might look like, 3 days of strength training and 2 days of cardio. Our baseline shift, but we still have baseline nourished nutrition. Baseline nourished mind and spirit looks different for every client. If we have clients who are super spiritual, we're going to tap into that. If we have clients who are not super spiritual, we're going to look at, personal development and growth and those kinds of things. And then we help clients look at the relationships in their life, look at who is helping me move forward, who is positive, who gives me energy, and who sucks energy. And then how do we start to learn to set boundaries around those things, so that I can have relationships that are healthy in my life, and my relationships feed me instead of suck me dry. And so that's how we build habits, instead of saying like, this is the morning routine that is the best morning routine, and you have to do this morning routine. We say, you need to do something in the morning that helps you get started. What is that going to look like? And then we kind of custom build that for them, with them, alongside them, in a way that can grow and change and evolve.
I love that. That makes so much sense. Start where they're at, start what makes sense for them. What can they do? Because sometimes, unfortunately in this wellness space, we hear the influencers, you got to wake up at 4 a.m. You got to get the cold shower. Then you got to hit the sun. And then you got to wait exactly, 190 to 120 minutes before you get the caffeine. If you do it any before that, you're going to, it doesn't have to be
Right.
complicated. It just, whatever works for you, whatever you can sustain, do that. And I'm in
Yeah.
Texas, and I don't wake up good in the morning. I don't want to wake up. My kids wake me up usually, and so
Yeah.
my morning routine can get disrupted very quickly. But I wake up, I get my water, I get my supplements in, electrolytes. I do go out in the sun for 5 minutes because I have dogs, and I'll let them out. I'll try to get a little bit of sun, and then come back inside. And do I always delay my coffee? I don't. Sometimes
Yeah.
I have it before because my schedule doesn't allow that. So, meet people where they're at. I love you have these pillars, if you will, for baseline nutrition, mindset, community, movement. And if we can just get a little bit of each of these every single day and kind of build, we're gonna, really see some awesome results later on.
Yeah.
So for movement, do you have, like a certain step count you like people to, or clients to kind of to get to? I know that's, there's some fluctuations there where people say we should only get 6,000 based on the research. Some people say we need 10,000. Some people say we need 12,000 for weight loss. Do you have any suggestions as far as that goes?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the short answer is no, we don't. And we don't for a very specific reason, because every single person's body is different. So what we say is you need to be moving more than you're sitting, right? For some people who are tied to a desk, that might be like getting a standing desk and standing on a BOSU while they work.
Cool.
Giving what we have found in working with clients now since 2016, 8 years, is that giving people you have to get 10,000 steps a day. There are people who are goal achievers, and so they're going to get 10,000 steps a day, even if it means like flapping their wrist around to get those steps, right? And then there are people who, if they don't get 10,000 steps a day, they feel like they failed and they completely miss all of the other things that they did. So we go back to nourished movement and we say, okay, your body is designed to move. It's not designed to sit in a chair. So if you're sitting in a chair all day long, nourished movement is going to look like starting by not sitting in a chair all day long. It might look like setting your work environment up so you can lay on your stomach, so you can have a standing desk and stand on a BOSU or get on a treadmill or do something. And so we have people who are very goals oriented and they're like, I want you to tell me to, lift weights 3 times a week. Great. I think lifting weights 3 times a week is fantastic. That is a standard operation baseline, right? We have the CDC that says 175 minutes of activity. That's a great baseline. But instead of just like step counts, we have to make that work for the client. Because someone can go walk 10,000 steps. They're not going to lose weight if they're walking those 10,000 steps super slowly. Or they're also not going to lose weight if they're doing those 10,000 steps in a HIIT workout and they have adrenal fatigue and they're just like trashing their adrenaline. So that's a really long answer to say, we meet our clients where they're at and we focus on that nourished movement and what that looks like for them, because movement is so important. But we don't have a set number because we just do it differently. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I'm just wondering because everyone has
Cool.
different suggestions as far as that goes. You mentioned adrenal fatigue, and I know that's a kind of a hot topic, controversial topic sometimes. And I know what it means. I know you know what it means. Sometimes other people will say they have it, and then you talk to a medical doctor and they say it's not real. But let's just talk about, because whether it's real or not, there is some degree of chronic stress and exhaustion that is happening with the HPA axis system that can't be ignored. And sometimes doctors will hear a patient who will say, hey, I think I have adrenal fatigue. And the doctor will say, well, that's not a real condition. They'll totally dismiss the signs of stress. They obviously have extreme signs of stress, and they're trying to portray that with that terminology that may or not be, contextually true or not. But if you have extreme stress and you call it adrenal fatigue and you're exhausting yourself and you're not recovering from your workouts because you have so much cortisol or not enough to kind of be resilient from that workout, you're not going to recover. And so if you're fasting or you're doing these intense workouts and your body's not in a state to recover correctly, it's going to make it worse. And so, yeah, I think that's a common misconception is we need to work harder. But sometimes we have to take a step back and analyze, is this actually nourishing my body, right? Is this actually going to, help me in the long term, with this type of exercise? Am I feeling like burnout? How's my sleep? How's my mood? How's my hormones, after I do this type of activity? So many different things to look at, right? And so that's where a health coach comes in, because they can actually see these things. And so how often does a health coach, at your company, how often do you guys see clients? Is it just, do they have 24/7 access, or how does that work with your company?
That's a great question. Yeah. So we work on a membership-based model. We do that for a couple of reasons. One, we do it to make it super affordable. So it's basically the cost of a Pilates membership. And we do that to give our clients access at whatever level they need. So we have 3 different tiers. Our first tier meets with, we call it a community cohort. So it's a group of 6 to 10 people working with a coach, moving in the same direction. So we put people in, like the gut health or the high A1C or whatever. They meet with that coach twice a month. And then they have a once a month call one-on-one with their coach. Our middle tier, they work with their coach once a week. And then our top tier gets unlimited access. So unlimited means you can call your coach every single day if you want to. But really what we say to our clients is what is your personality? Are you a go-getter? Are you I can tell you what to do and you're going to go do it? Or are you I need accountability all day, every day in order to make this happen and move forward? And there's no judgment either way. Just know yourself and know your personality and know what you need in order to make these changes. So that's kind of the answer to that question. How often we see them is how often they need it.
So what is the average, or what kind of a group do most people go to with those three different ones you named?
Yeah. So most of our clients are in that middle tier. So most of our clients, meet with their coach once a week, meet with their community cohort twice a month. That's kind of the average. That's the average.
Cool. It makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So let's get to some fun questions here. And I'm excited to talk about this first one. So if you could take one herb, vitamin, mineral, supplement, if you will, on a desert island, what would you choose and why?
Oh man, you asked me that question when we connected over the phone and I had to think about it, but now I know my answer, and it's magnesium, because if I'm on a desert island, I'm probably getting plenty of sunshine, so I'm
Hmm.
probably okay with vitamin D. I'm probably close to the equator, so I'm okay there. And magnesium is just, it's that magic supplement that is, 300 plus functions in our body require magnesium, and we are chronically deficient as a country and a nation and a world in magnesium. So I would take magnesium with me.
I love it. So would I. And like, I love when people answer magnesium because we actually have the same kind of thought process. I was like, hey, we're going to get vitamin D from the sun. Magnesium is a cofactor for vitamin D from the sun. So we actually need magnesium. And if we're sweating, we're hot, we're losing some of our electrolytes like magnesium, it just makes a lot of sense to take magnesium, in my opinion. Um,
Yep.
if you could put one or two health sentences on a billboard, what would you put on there
Oh,
that
that
everybody would
is
see?
such a good idea. Man, that's a great question. One or two sentences. Um, one or two sentences. I would put on there. Okay, here's my one or two sentences. One is kind of a run on that's okay. So I put Michael Pollan's quote on there: eat real food, mostly plants, not too much. And then I would say move your body more than you sit.
Love it. I love it. Okay,
Yeah.
so we went through a lot today, but if you could reverse roles with me and ask some questions that I didn't ask, what questions would you have liked to cover that we
Oh
didn't cover
man.
maybe?
You asked such good questions, Dr. Fredrickson.
Thank you.
Gosh. So one of my favorite things to talk about that I'm a super nerd on is the connection between gut health and mental health. Um, I love I love that connection because it is such a powerful connection, and it helps people get well so much faster when they understand that their mental health, yes, has to do with their past and trauma and their current life situation, but it also has to do with the amount of serotonin that their gut is producing and the amount of inflammation that is going on there. And if we can get both things working at the same time, so often we have a couple counselors that we work with who refer patients to us because they're working on all these mental health things and they're just not getting traction. And so they send us to us and we help them fix their gut, and then we send them back to them and they're like, oh, like suddenly they have bandwidth to do all this other work, and then vice versa. So that's one of my favorite things is just the gut health, brain health connection.
Well, Hallie, we have time, so if you don't mind, could you maybe talk about a few cool cases that you've seen where this has actually happened in practice, and what maybe they weren't seeing before, then you kind of changed with kind of your approach to health and wellness?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a counselor who we work with who we refer clients back and forth a lot because we believe that, with nutrition and health coaching, we're a piece of the puzzle, but we're not the whole puzzle. And this counselor believes the same thing. Like she's a piece of the puzzle, but she's not the whole puzzle. And so we have one client who she referred to us, gosh, this is probably like 6 months ago, dealing with severe anxiety and depression, heavily medicated on antidepressants, on anti-anxiety medication, has a lot of trauma. So that's a real thing, like was severely abused as a kid. And so we're
Mm,
working through all of those things. But one of the things she said to her counselor, she's like, I'm super anxious to eat because anytime I eat, I feel more anxious after. And thankfully, this counselor and I have a relationship and we've talked about gut health and brain health and all these things. And so that counselor goes, you need to go to Live Nourished Coaching. And this girl was like, okay, sure, sign me up. So she came over and we started working on her gut health. We started working on helping her identify her food intolerances and what those food intolerances do to her body, and helping her understand that, when she eats these things, it's actually causing this anxiety reaction, and getting her really conscious about what she's putting in her body and then what happens 2 to 3 hours later after she eats. And with tag teaming that work, working on her gut health, working on her nutrition, working on, like severe nutritional deficiencies, we were basically able to get her to a place where she had enough bandwidth to actually
mm.
then go back to this counselor and work on some of the harder things with EMDR and kind of this deeper trauma work. And it was so fun. That counselor and I, we signed a HIPAA compliance form so we can like talk back and forth and really tag team on this client. But one of the things that she said, she like this client took a break from counseling for 2 months to come and work with us. And then we sent her back to counseling, and her counselor called us and was like, it's like talking to a different person. Like her
Wow, that's
brain
awesome.
is functioning. Yeah. And it was one of those moments where I was like, man, that is so cool. To get those underlying pieces in a place where now she really can actually heal. It's just amazing. And, the gut brain connection, we can talk about all the science and all the pieces, but I think that's a really cool story that highlights it really well. And this client was in tears after her first couple sessions back with her counselor, because she's like, what you're saying finally makes sense. And I feel like I can actually, implement the strategies that this counselor is giving her to help her work through this anxiety and depression. And that patient is now, so she's now back with that counselor and she's off her anxiety medication. She's still on depression medication, but on a much lower dose than she was. Like, that's cool.
That's amazing. That's
really
amazing.
neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause I'm sure in health coaching, you probably get I guess maybe tell me, what is your niche, or who do you see like the most type of, conditions? Is it more thyroid? Is it more weight loss? Is it combination of all of those, autoimmune, mental, emotional? Is there
Yeah.
something they see more than others? Or is it
Yeah.
fun because you get to see all of them all the time, always different cases? So,
It is fun because we get to see all the things all the time, especially when we work with practitioners, right? Like we have our niche for people who come to us directly as clients, but because we work with practitioners, we get to see all of it. And I just love it because I tell people, like, functional medicine isn't rocket science at all. It's like really absolute basic things, like eat good food, move your body, take care of yourself, and your body will function better. But what we focus on when people come directly to us as clients is where we focus on gut health. We focus on chronic fatigue. We focus on kind of that like brain foggy symptom. And we typically end up working with moms who are like overstressed, overwhelmed, anywhere from 30 to 55. Once they start going through menopause, we usually refer them out because we're not great at menopause. So that's kind of our niche when clients come directly to us, but it's also really fun working with doctors because we get to work with clients all over the board with thyroid and type 2 diabetes and high cholesterol. And we have one doctor that we work with who works with cancer patients. And that's super fun to help them understand, like, what you're putting in your body is either feeding or killing your tumor. So let's focus on the things that are killing your tumor and helping that light bulb of hope go off of like, oh my gosh, you're telling me that while I'm going through cancer treatment, I can be setting my body up to fight this thing on its own. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Sure can.
that's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
So for health coaching, if they're not coming from a doctor, they're coming to you just from your practice, can y'all do lab testing with them, or do you have to work with another doctor, or how does that work?
Great question. We don't do lab testing because that's out of our scope of practice. We do
Okay.
a ton of education with our clients about lab testing. So, we'll have clients come to us for like, I tested my thyroid and my thyroid's fine, but I have all these thyroid symptoms. And so we'll educate them on, why you want to go back and ask your doctor about, you're getting TSH and T3, but we want to go ask your doctor about T4 and thyroid antibodies, because this is what T4 and thyroid antibodies tell you. And so we're empowering them to then go back to their practitioner and advocate and ask for what they need and want. Most practitioners will test B12, but they won't test D3 or any of these other things.
Mm-hmm.
So we're educating our patients on like, this is what a micronutrient panel looks like. This is what those tests are. This is what all these things tell you. Please go back to your doctor and ask. So we don't run lab tests ourselves because it's out of our scope of practice, and because, insurance should cover that through a practitioner. And really, we just need to educate our clients and our patients on how to advocate for themselves.
I love it. So it still keeps the doctor, kind of in charge of the labs. I think that's great. I think it's a great model to have. And I think a lot of doctors and physician groups should really look into, adding a health coach service like Live Nourished to the routine. If they really are serious about changing health and they don't have something in the office to implement already, so many offices don't,
Yeah.
they should really look into, look at you guys. So where can people find you guys online? Where can they find your resources, more
Yeah.
information?
Yeah. So livenourishedcoaching.com is our website, LIVENOURISHED coaching.com. Best place to go. If you're a doctor looking to work with us as health coaches, you can just go submit that form. I'll get that and get back to you within 24 hours. And if you're a client, you can go book a free consult with us right on that website. That's the best way to get in touch with us. And we are super honest about, if we can help you, we will tell you that we can help you. If we can't, we have, a 60 plus practitioner list of people that we refer out to. So if you're a patient and you don't know where to start, book a free consult, and starting with us is a great place because we will get you to where you need to be. And yeah, if you're a doctor, shoot me an email. I would love to connect.
Perfect. Okay. Favorite form of magnesium? Last question.
I love it. Magnesium glycinate.
Nice. Do you take it in the morning? Do you take it at night?
I take mine at night because it
Okay.
helps me sleep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. I take a magnesium glycinate before bed every night too. So
Yep.
awesome. Well, Hallie, this has been so fun, so insightful talking with you about health coaching and how we can kind of change the paradigm and habits of people, across the world and really make health and wellness a routine, a lifestyle that we should all, kind of adopt. So I really appreciate you coming on today, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
I would love that. Dr. Fredrickson, thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Fredrickson Health Show. This podcast is for educational purposes only and not intended to be used as personalized medical advice. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, leave us a rating and review. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our email newsletter for more information.